Alrighty, here we go. Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Terence Ray, and I'm the owner, publisher, and editor of stmartinnews.com. And stmartinnews.com is the presenter of this News Cafe show that we're now hosting weekly on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And with that being said, I welcome you into our studio this evening. I hope you're all tuning and watch us live in this show. Of the last 15 minutes of the show, you can pose questions through the chat function on YouTube or on Facebook. Tonight is a very interesting night. It's a special night. We have a very special guest join us tonight. Join us all the way from Cambodia. We have, ladies and gentlemen, a special guest with us, Mr. Hilbert Haar. Hilbert Haar has been for years, over 10 years, has been the managing editor of the Today newspaper in St. Martin. And I had a good fortune to be in a position to work with Mr. Hilbert Haar during that short period that I came on board with the Today newspaper in 2016. It was a short period because indeed at September 2017, on that unfortunate month of the year in 2017, St. Martin was blown away, and also the Today newspaper building was also unfortunately blown away. And we had to pack up our things and go online with a new news medium called stmartinnews.com. And Mr. Hilbert Haar continued with me as a writer for that news platform. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you Mr. Hilbert Haar. Welcome, Hilbert. Or Bert, as I'll call you.
Yeah, well, call me Bert, you know. Thank you for having me, Terence. It's really a pleasure to be able to speak to you and to your audience in St. Martin from so far away. You got a lot of technology, right?
Yes.
And,
well, far away indeed, Cambodia. Wow. You'll have to tell us a little bit how you end up there. But before we continue, I want to use this opportunity to take a moment to stand by our fallen colleague, Andrew Bishop. Unfortunately, he was passed on and left us on Monday, gone. Andrew Bishop was a impeccable, always dressed journalist. I remember the first time when I met him at the Today newspaper, he walked in, and as I called it, walked in taxed to the max. He was always impeccably dressed. I envied his suits and his ties. He was always dressed to the max. And it turned out that Andrew was not only an experienced journalist and TV broadcaster, but he turned out to be also a very good friend. And I had a good fortune to work with him those past years up until indeed his passing, which was also a big shock to me personally, because I was not aware that he had gone through a heart attack situation the week before. So it came as a shock to me that he had passed on Monday. And indeed, tomorrow we'll have his death announcement in the newspaper, and pending family arrangements, the funeral will be announced at a later date. So with that being said, I wish all his family and friends, his loved one out there, family and friends in the US, family and friends in Guyana and across the diaspora, I wish them indeed my heartfelt condolence on the passing of our good friend, our brother, our journalist, our soldier in arms, because he was also very proud of the fact that he served for many years in the Guyana Army. I forgot what his rank was. I'll have to check that indeed. But I just want to say, may his soul rest in peace, and may God give guidance and solace to his spirit along the way to his final destination. So,
yeah, Andrew was a true gentleman, I think. And what many people maybe don't know is that before he came to Sint Maarten, he was in the army in Guyana.
right.
And he once told me, without giving me actually too many details, that he was at Jonestown, the place where that American founded a cult where hundreds of people killed themselves. He was there when it went down.
Wow.
It's quite an amazing piece of history, actually.
Absolutely. Wow. Oh, I never went into details with him on that subject, indeed, but he had many stories to tell, and he was, I was adamant about, the level of journalism that we have to abide by here in St. Maarten. He was, without what's concerned, he made no jokes about his profession. And he was actually very proud. And for up until last year, he was still going strong with his TV show In Depth with Andrew Bishop. So he went straight on till the end, indeed, with his programs.
Yeah, and he had heart trouble before a couple of years when I was still in St. Maarten, I seem to remember.
Yes, he had a past surgery at a time. That was actually when I first met him, when he came back. And he came finally back to work at it today, is when I first met him after he had recovered from his surgery.
Yeah.
Now, what a lot of people don't know is that last year he had another heart attack, unfortunately, and he had to be flown out to Curacao to get medical treatment in Curacao. And when he came back, he said, Terence, I'm not the same old Andrew I was, so I'm going to take it slow.
Yeah, well, that all makes you realize that sooner or later we all got to go. Of course, that's the sad reality of life. It ends somewhere,
right?
And you're sad, but you're stuck with the best thing to do is to remember the good things.
Absolutely.
And there were a lot of good things to remember about Andrew. So I'm really honored to have known him there today.
Yes, I have a photo of him during one of the Council Ministers press briefing, and he had a certain look on his face, a very critical look on his face. I was able to screenshot that look. I have to look for it somewhere. It's on my other laptop, but I need to find it and post it because it was so funny. But it was typical Andrew. If Andrew heard something or someone saying nonsense, you could read it literally in his face.
Yeah. He was good in that sense.
He will be fondly remembered, at least from my end, and I know for a fact from many of our colleagues here on St. Maarten in radio broadcast, in print publishing and online media. He will be fondly remembered because he was friends with everyone. I do not know Andrew to have any negative vibes or bad issues with anyone here in St. Maarten. Anywhere I go with Andrew was welcomed like a celebrity.
Yeah. Well,
so indeed, moving on, you wrote a special column, especially for this occasion, that I would like for you to read for our readers as an intro into our topic this evening. Our topic this evening will be the role of the media in St. Maarten, and for that special occasion, you have written a column especially for this show tonight.
Okay. I kept it brief, but here we go. The role of the media. What is the function of proper journalism in a community like St. Martin? This question gets more often than not the wrong answer. Politicians have said more than once to me that the role of the media is to educate. But that's utter nonsense. It is the role of parents and schools to educate. Reputable media offer platforms to disseminate fact-based information and to subject those in power to critical questions. That's it. If I write something, I have to be able to back it up. If I cannot back it up, I don't write it. In a community where rumors and tall tales are the order of the day, it is of course tempting to jump on that bandwagon and join the melee. I am sure everybody knows of websites and social media abusers who do nothing else but just that. But journalists who take their job serious don't take part in this. Unfortunately, rumors and gossip have a tendency to start leading a life of their own. If you read a lie often enough, it is tempting to believe that, hey, it must be true. Back in the day, there was a firm belief. It was in the newspaper, so it has to be true. These days, you cannot take anything for granted anymore. Therefore, the best thing to do is getting your information from different news sources. And never, of course, trust your government. And last but not least, think about what you read. Is the source of that story reliable? Is the messenger, the one who wrote the story, reliable? Do other sources report the same thing? Or do they report something completely different? It takes an effort to arrive at the truth, but believe me, it is worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. Very nice column. I'll publish it for our readers after our show tonight. So it will be online on stmartinnews.com. Readers can tune in there or surf the site and read the article. We also have a second article that I'll also be publishing more in depth on the topic because tonight, like I said, the discussion will be the role of the media on St. Martin. Now, you have been here for quite a number of years on St. Martin. Tell us about your time here on St. Martin, how you end up on St. Martin, and the experience working on St. Martin for so many years on the other as the managing editor of the Today newspaper.
Yeah, well, when I arrived at the Today newspaper, I started working as a court reporter because nobody in that paper spoke Dutch. So, I started doing court stories. And then Leighton Levy, who was the editor at the time, he left, and I got his job. That's how I ended up there. And my experience today is that, I always had to fight against the notion. People say, "Oh, that is the newspaper of Richard Gibson," and it is indeed true. Of course, Mr. Gibson was the owner of the company, but I always said, I own the content of the newspaper. That's something totally different. Mr.
Right.
Gibson, I can honestly say Mr. Gibson never, ever interfered with the contents of the newspaper as I produced it. Never. So it is, for journalists, it was, on the one hand, I had an enormous amount of freedom. On the other hand, of course, you have a big responsibility to live up to your to the principles of your profession.
Absolutely.
But it was absolutely a great time being there, even though it was at times difficult because in all the years I worked there.
And that period, what year you worked? We know it ended in 2017 and you moved away in 2018. But from when did you start working at it Today in St. Martin?
That must have been 2007.
Oh, so 10 years.
2007, yeah, April 2007 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the year, Leighton left, and then Mr. Gibson gave me the keys to the.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have technical difficulties. At the end of the day, we're going to wait and see if Mr. Gilbert Harder comes back in and joins us in the studio via his internet connection out of Cambodia. But indeed, he is right. I remember in the period that I worked at the Today newspaper, I worked there as a general manager. So my job was to take the newspaper out of the offline world and also introduce it to the online world. So we started indeed with a news platform on the today.essex platform. And as general manager, of course, I was responsible for the sales and marketing and the daily management and operation of the newspaper. But one night, Bert, as we call him, called me up and said that, hey, Terrence, sorry, I'm sick like a dog. I can't come in. You will have to write the content for the newspaper tonight and publish it for the next day. And I was like, oh, whoa. And the sports staff was there, of course, as usual every night. And I just started writing. I just put in my mind, write like how Bert would write. And that's how I wrote all the content, the editorial, all the articles, the opinion piece I wrote that night in a period of 3 hours. I wrote and got the paper to the printery, the specs, and they printed it out. And the next morning, it rolled off the printery and was on the streets like nothing happened. And I was blown away that it was for me, a pretty fairly easy process. So that was for me my first experience with writing content for a newspaper. Of course, I wrote articles. For many years, I would write articles and columns and opinion pieces for my own online news publication. I would also write for Dutch news websites. There's a lot of news websites that I wrote for in Holland during my period there, working and living in Holland. I would write in Dutch, also in English. But that was the first time in St. Martin that I had actually had the responsibility of producing a complete newspaper. I think it was about 24 pages that I was able to produce that night in Bert's absence. So that gave me the confidence to continue writing and writing content as a whole for the whole newspaper. And I even did a couple of sections, like, the typical out and about sections. I would also produce that content for the newspaper. We try to do some other segments in the newspaper, a sports segment. We have tried that many times. And then indeed, when the Hurricane Irma destroyed the building and destroyed the printery, we decided to close down the newspaper. And because of the fact that, the need for online newspaper was still there, I continued online with stmartinnews.com, and Bert, being the consummate writer that he is, decided to continue writing as well for St. Martin News Online. And he was doing that for almost a year before he left St. Martin with his wife, traveling through Europe, Russia, ended up over in Southeast Asia, and by way of Cambodia, Singapore, he's now, by way of Malaysia, Singapore, he's now based in Cambodia. But that short period working with Bert was very inspirational. I saw the production of a newspaper from all ends, because I was also, as general manager, also involved with the production side in the printery. The printery was located over in Coal Bay. So many times at night, I would have to drive down to Coal Bay to make sure that things were running smoothly on that side. Things would always be happening. They would run out of ink, they would run out of paper. So, at times I literally had to call our colleagues at the Herald to borrow newspaper. I would have to send a truck to get like 2 big rolls of newspapers, or even ink for that matter. We would run out of ink, and then we would have to lend in from our colleagues there as well. So there was always something happening. I remember one night a part broke down with a roller or something that broke down from within one of the machines. So the next morning I had to get on the phone and call all kind of different suppliers in the United States, trying to find that particular part. And I was able that day, before midday actually, I was able to find that part by one supplier who had one more left in stock. and I just pulled out my credit card. I didn't even wait to get permission from Mr. Gibson, the owner. I just pulled out my credit card and I just placed the order and had it shipped down with FedEx down to St. Martin. And it arrived that same afternoon by FedEx in St. Martin, and we were able to install it that same night and have the paper printed the next day like nothing happened. So I've had that experience. But going online with stmartinnews.com, I publish a number of articles and also produce my own newspaper, digitally, of course. And every once in a while, depending if we had a big advertiser that wanted to pay for the cost, we would print the newspaper either in St. Martin by our colleagues at the Daily Herald or at a printery in Curacao. So that was how we were able to print newspapers, physical newspapers now and then. So we had a number we printed over the years. And that also has been a very good experience. I work with graphic editors, I work with layout editors, I work with the printers. So that also gave me a lot of experience in publishing newspapers as well. So the intention is somewhere this year to get our own printery, a digital printer, and start printing again, hopefully on a daily, if not weekly basis, start printing a physical newspaper again. Of course, Hilbert won't be here to write for us, but naturally, he will continue to contribute articles as he's been doing over the years from Southeast Asia, in this case from Cambodia. He delivers his articles via email to me, and I'm always happy to get his input on many topics here on St. Martin, especially politics. He continues to watch and follow politics here on St. Martin, and trust me, politics being what it is today in St. Martin, it still gives Hilbert a lot of content to write about. So I think, given the present situation in St. Martin with the political situation, we indeed can expect much of Hilbert's writing, and I hope that he'll continue to write for us as well. It doesn't look like he's in any position to get back in, unfortunately. So what I'll do is we'll take a short commercial break, and then after the commercial break, I will continue a solo discussion on the role of the media in St. Martin. So we take a short break now.
The slogan of stmartinnews.com is news, views, reviews, and interviews. stmartinnews.com is always on point with editorials and opinion pieces. stmartinnews.com is the best in political analysis, court cases, and investigative reporting. We tell it like it is. stmartinnews.com is the only news site to bring the news directly to you via email. Register today at stmartinnews.com for your free subscription to the daily newsletter and read the news on your smartphone, tablet, and desktop computer. Because we do things and view things differently at stmartinnews.com, support our work and buy a year subscription for only $75 per year. stmartinnews.com for news, views, reviews, and interviews. Subscribe today. We will bring you the news faster than Facebook.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live in the studio here at News Café. We had a guest, a very interesting guest, all the way from Cambodia, Mr. Hilbert Haar, a former managing editor of the Today newspaper here in St. Martin. Unfortunately, his connection with us conked out and have left us here in the studio all alone. So I will have to continue the show by myself. And the topic for tonight that we were going to discuss with Mr. Hilbert Haar was the role of the media on St. Martin. So that being said, I think I'll have to continue that topic myself. So let me just pick up the list here and put it on my screen. So if you see me veering off now and then, it's because I'm consulting my notes. But the topic of the evening was the role of the media here in St. Martin. Now, being a media person myself, I always tell people that I'm not a journalist, I'm not a reporter. I am publisher and editor of stmartinnews.com. Yes, I do write articles myself, but primarily my role is not a reporter. I would go to events, I would cover certain functions, but my role mainly is to be the publisher and editor of the newspaper. So I always encourage people to write and submit their articles to me. I will indeed have a look at it, publish it, and after I've edited, I will publish it. So I always encourage people to send me letters to the editor. I will publish them with or without their name, depending on the topic and depending on the person and the issue at hand. Of course, I continue to get articles from Mr. Herbert Hart. But that being said, I am not a reporter, but I in a position, of course, to see many of my colleagues in the industry, in the print industry, which we have the Daily Herald, we have the online media platforms, we have a number of news sites online, very active as well. And we've had some reporters that do live broadcasting on St. Martin, and sometimes there's a lot to be said about that function that some now fulfill in the media here on St. Martin. Nowadays, with technology being what it is, and the ability to go live on Facebook, to broadcast podcasts via YouTube, everyone nowadays can call themselves a reporter and go online and do a news broadcast. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to the content of what they're broadcasting. Is it relevant? Is it reliable? Is it informational? Is it dependable? That, of course, has to do with certain standards in journalism, certain standards in reporting that we have to adhere to. I am not a reporter, I'm not a journalist. I didn't study journalism. I rolled into the profession as I described. And I think that goes for many of us on the island that is active now in the media. We did not study to be reporters or journalists. Many of us rolled into the profession and utilizing the technology that is available. But at the end of the day, it is important that whether we're hobbyists, professionals, or if we are saying that we are the media here in St. Martin, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, the media is what we call the fourth estate in our society. The media is actually the watchdog of what's going on in society, especially where government is concerned and where the function of government is concerned. The media is the one to look critically at how government is functioning, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how does it rhymes with what they have promised the electorate to do, given a certain government program that they may have, even a manifesto that the parties had, but mainly what is their government program, how they are following that program, and how they're implementing their policies and executing it accordingly. Of course, where government is concerned, it is important to have that critical function as a watchdog in society, monitoring what they're doing, because at the end of the day, you need that critical balance where indeed politicians and government officials, ministers, not have just the free rein to do what they want and say what they want and act accordingly. It has to be indeed according to certain guidelines and principles, especially when it comes to governance, transparency and openness of government. As the media, sometimes we pose questions, we ask questions from the ministers, we ask questions from government, and you don't always get the answer or the right answer that you're looking for. Of course, government has their own media department. They issue their press releases, their communiques, and we as a media have to dissect those communiques and go through that to find relevance to what the topic is about, and where necessary to pose questions. Government, of course, has their role in providing information to the public. They utilize, of course, the platform of their press briefings to do that. And the media is indeed invited to attend those press briefings and pose questions. Like I said, I personally am not a reporter or a journalist, so I've never attended any of the government press briefings. I would send reporters to the press briefings. In the past, of course, Hilbert Hart when he worked for the stmartinnews.com, he will attend those press briefings as well. And prior to that, for the Today newspaper, he will always be there on a weekly basis during the press briefing to pose his questions. At one point, indeed, I sent Andrew Bishop also to attend the press briefings to report on the topics at hand. But when we look at the press briefings, we've seen over the years a number of issues popping up that gave rise to discussions about the role of the media, discussions about the function of the media in collaboration with government. At one point, there were vivid discussions about a media policy. Government wanted to implement a media policy to determine the role and the function of the media. Of course, many of us in the media did not agree with a one-sided imposition of policies where media is concerned. We wanted to have an input and a say in that process as well. I believe there was a process implemented, and I believe maybe one or two of our media colleagues got to give their input into that process. I know especially one of our media colleagues was very adamant about the content of that media policy document. And I don't believe it ever got a good footing and got off the ground where that is concerned. So, it would have been great tonight if we had more of our colleagues here in the show to discuss their side of the story when it comes to determining the media policy on St. Martin. But for that, and the need for government and in collaboration with the media on the island to determine a government policy, that is something that still needs to be done. That's something that needs to be worked out. But I believe that from our end as media, we should take the initiative. We should take the initiative to form what I call, and what is called generally around the world in other countries, and I got this idea from in the UK. You form a media council, and that media council determines indeed policies for the profession, policies for the colleagues active in the industry, whether in print, in radio broadcasting or TV broadcasting. And now, of course, online broadcasting is a section of the media industry that now has full attention and very vibrant and active. As you can see from this show itself, News Café, it is a development in a direction that is the future, where indeed news will be literally brought to you via all the online social media channels. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have WhatsApp. Of course, we have email and other channels, of course. But what you're seeing, for instance, now in WhatsApp, you see WhatsApp now is creating their own channels where you can create vertical channels and inform your followers of all the news development going on within the society. You can utilize WhatsApp for that purpose as well, using the WhatsApp channels. You can use Facebook. You can go live on Facebook and do an instant broadcasting from wherever you are on the island. You can go live and reach all your followers, thousands, if not hundreds of people at a time online on the social media platform called Facebook. You can also do the same on YouTube. So that means that there are now more channels in our media landscape, and we need indeed to have guidelines, have some type of rules and regulations in place, and also indeed policies that we as a media have to adhere to. And I think we should take initiative to do that. Don't wait until government impose from top-down rules and regulations that we as a media have to adhere to. No, let us from inside do that ourselves and establish a media council and get that going from our end as well. Because once we take the initiative, we have no one to blame but ourselves if indeed government take the initiative and impose rules and regulations on us. So let us take the initiative and start that process. And I would invite all my colleagues in the print industry, in the online media industry, in the radio, in television, TV broadcasting, and of course nowadays with internet broadcasting, you have that segment as well. I would like to invite all these colleagues to come together, and sit down as one group and go over the establishment of a media council. A media council would then be the guiding entity that we can refer to or come back to get guidance in certain issues and certain aspects. So in case there is a dispute, I'm just saying, if there's a dispute amongst colleagues in the industry, we can have the media council be the one to mediate and solve whatever issues there are. If there's a dispute between government and the media in general, the media council would be the entity to represent the media on St. Martin and sit at the table with government and discuss the topics and issues at hand. That way, you don't get a one-sided approach that one media personality is doing all the talking, or he or she is sitting at the table with government and the others don't have a say or don't feel represented in that process. So I think the media council as an independent body or independent entity in the media section on St. Martin would be the right entity to discuss and deal with issues, talking with government about media policies or media rules and regulations that reporters, broadcasters, whatnot, have to abide by while they're indeed setting the policies from their side. And we will have a counterbalance, as it were, to have an independent body like the Media Council representing all the media on St. Martin, not just one particular segment, but all the media. And when I say all the media, indeed, like I said, we will talk about print, radio, TV, and online broadcasting as well. So that being said, we have the idea for a media council. Like I said, I invite our colleagues to chime in on that topic. There are other issues to be discussed. We have the time this evening. So at the end of the day, we want to discuss the freedom of the media. To what extent is the media free to do and report on whatever they want, however they want? That is an issue that is debatable. There are a lot where that is concerned that can be discussed. We often see reporters pushing the barrier where the media conduct is concerned. Sometimes, it raises eyebrows when we see certain things happening. You question, indeed, if that's the right way to do certain things, or if that's the right way to go about the media work here on the island. Of course, we often joke that in St. Martin, people like melee. So that is, of course, a topic that is always causing a lot of stir on the island when it comes to reporting, how it's reporting certain information, how it's communicated and disseminated to the general public. At the end of the day, we, as the media, has to be very mindful of how we do our work when it comes to publishing and broadcasting certain information. As Gilbert had pointed out in his radio column, he just read out loud for us in the intro part of the segment. He doesn't write anything unless he has it backed up with evidence. And of course, again, we can debate as long as we live about how far you can get evidence to back up certain stories or articles in the media. But at the end of the day, that should be the guideline when it comes to publishing. Always have your facts. Always have the evidence to back up those statements that you make. We were discussing before the show started, Hilbert and I, we were discussing how often, we would quote certain individuals, we would quote ministers, and they would say, "Hey, I didn't say that." When there's pushback or there's something backfires after the statements have been published on the record in the newspaper or other media platforms, they would complain that they are misquoted or what they said was taken out of context. That's also a very famous line. What I said was taken out of context. So thankfully, we often have recordings of our interviews with people that we record. Basically, when we do an interview, we ask them for their permission to record a session, so that it is recorded, so we have the evidence there on based on what they have said. So that always can be brought forward as evidence that, hey, yeah, that's what you said, and I'm quoting you accordingly. You know, also it's good to remind people that when they're speaking, and I often remind of that. You know, when you're speaking to me, remember I also wear the hat of as publisher and editor of St. Martin News. So I often make it clear to people that when you're talking to me and you're giving me certain information, it's either on the record or off the record. If I tell you it's on the record, then that means that whatever you tell me, I can use to write about in my articles or to publish. So I often get often get pushed by, oh, it's off the record. What I'm telling you now is off the record. And I always respect that. If I'm speaking to a politician, a minister or government official or anyone in the community, business-wise or otherwise, and you know, we agree that everything they say is off the record, then indeed it will be off the record. And I always honor that. So no one out there can say that, you know, they told Terrence something and he ran and put it in his newspaper the next day. Again, I have multiple roles in our community. On the one hand, I'm a businessman, but on the other hand, I'm also a government advisor. On the other hand, I'm a publisher. So it all depends what role I am fulfilling. And especially if I'm fulfilling the role of a government advisor, I literally put up Chinese walls between myself and my newspaper, and whatever I am privy to, given my function, I do not disclose or print without proper permission. Of course, you know, if government puts out a press release and makes certain statements after I've had a meeting with government officials, it's up to them. And then, of course, I can have my writers or even Hilbert Hard write and comment and give commentary or opinion pieces on the topic at hand. So at the end of the day, I always make sure that I personally I'm covered where that is concerned. But I think as media, as journalists, as reporters, you always have to make sure that you have your bases covered. And this is the reason why, you know, there's a lot of debate on the island about the conduct of the media, because sometimes, you know, I'm afraid to admit it, but sometimes, you know, the conduct of some of our colleagues in the media industry on St. Martin is gives much to be to discuss and talk about, unfortunately. So where that is concerned, indeed, we all have to one day agree that, you know, we have to do things a certain way on a professional basis, because at the end of the day, we want to be professionals. We want to have a professional reputation, and we want to have that trust. We want to have that trust not only from our readers and our viewers out there. We want to have the trust from our government officials, from our people that wants to come to us and give us certain information. Because remember, that's a big issue here on St. Martin, the issue of whistleblowers. Because at the end of the day, whistleblowers is also a big source, a very important source for us as media to get certain inside information, whether it's in government or a ministry, a government department, or even a government-owned company. A lot of information is disseminated to the media through certain channels because it is not done officially. And people within these entities feel that, you know, the media or the general public should have a right to know what's going on inside that entity, be it a government ministry, a government department, or even a government-owned company. So a lot of times we as a media, we depend on certain information coming from certain channels. And of course, we try as media to protect our sources. It's a fundamental right. It's, you know, it should be even in our constitution that whistleblowers should be protected at all times, because whistleblowers do not do what they do for some kind of fame or lust for attention. They do what they do because they are genuinely concerned about what is happening within that entity that they're working. And always, indeed, you see that what information they bring out, naturally, those in charge of that entity would denounce the fact that documents have been leaked. That has been a big topic for years and for many times in many government entities that we write about. I can name entities like GB, ministries like Bromi, ministries like TEAT, where documents were leaked to the media or leaked to the general public or even leaked to the prosecutor's office. So there you see that the reason that happens is because persons within these entities feel that the public has a right to know, and at the end of the day, you have to respect that that issue, and that's why we as media also we would implore on government to have a whistleblower policy in place. They have attempted many times, and so far I don't think that got off the ground as well. To have a whistleblower policy in place to protect workers inside these entities when they decide to come forward with complaints, that they are protected and they're not victimized and have to pay the price when they leak certain information or give certain information to the general public or to the media or even to the prosecutor's office. We've seen a case at hand at the airport where a director felt it was his duty to report on certain issues within the airport to the government shareholders and to Parliament for that matter. And he took it upon himself at the request of persons within these different entities, Parliament and in government, to give out that information. And he paid a price for doing that. He lost his job and he was condemned for doing what he did. But at the end of the day, the discussion is it wrong what he did? Is it wrong? I would beg to differ where that is concerned. As a media, I would feel that, we have an obligation to protect these people when they're found in these positions. And at the end of the day, there has to be a clear conduct policy where this is concerned in the interest of the whistleblowers, but also in the interest of the media, because when we publish this information, we also don't want to have pushback from government or any of these officials that, we have published leaked documents, because I personally have had this discussion many times with many people in certain ministries, governments, and entities, that once we have access to documents that is in the public sphere, in the public domain, and we get those documents as well, whether via social media, via WhatsApp or other channels, once we have these documents and we have reviewed the evidence in these documents, if we believe it's in the interest of the general public to publish that information, we will publish that information. And then it's up to those involved, ministers, government officials or whatnot, to indeed address the issue at hand and reveal and tell us, the public, via the media channels, what exactly is going on. Why is this document in the public domain? There is a reason for that, and that reason has to be addressed. Oftentimes, they want to address and attack the messenger. But as we always say in the media, don't blame the messenger, don't attack the messenger. Attack the issue at hand. If there's an issue that needs to be addressed, you need to address that issue. And don't attack or blame the media when certain information or documents is leaked, because those same documents also end up in the hands of the justice authorities in the judicial sphere. So the prosecutor as well gets their hands on those same documents, and it's up to them to do or to deal with that issue at hand. And to round off that topic, in 2017, 2018, the issue of the integrity chamber was big issue at that time. And with the imposition of the Dutch government, we were forced to establish an integrity chamber. And the integrity chamber was formed for that purpose, to look into allegations or issues where government, especially government is concerned and government-owned entities. So if there's any allegations of misconduct or wrongdoings, it was supposed to be the task of the integrity chamber to look into that process. How it happens nowadays, that's also debatable. We can maybe have the director of the integrity chamber one day as a guest on this show to talk about that aspect of the work of the integrity chamber and what that has meant for the functioning of government in our society, the functioning of the media, and the functioning, of course, of those that feel obligated to leak information or to provide information or to file complaints with the relevant authorities about what they seem to be going on in their respective entities. It's a mouthful, of course, and unfortunately, we don't have Hibatar with us to discuss that issue. So I'm going to take a short break. We'll go into a commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll see if we have any questions from the viewers, and then close off the evening. So we'll take a short break for now.
The slogan of StMartinNews.com is news, views, reviews, and interviews. StMartinNews.com is always on point with editorials and opinion pieces. StMartinNews.com is the best in political analysis, court cases, and investigative reporting. We tell it like it is. StMartinNews.com is the only news site to bring the news directly to you via email. Register today at StMartinNews.com for your free subscription to the daily newsletter and read the news on your smartphone, tablet, and desktop computer. Because we do things and view things differently at StMartinNews.com, support our work and buy a year subscription for only $75 per year. StMartinNews.com for news, views, reviews, and interviews. Subscribe today. We will bring you the news faster than Facebook.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us, with me so far. At this time of the show, we normally would take questions from the viewing public. If there's no questions, I will continue with one more topic that I want to discuss before closing off this evening's edition of News Cafe. And that is the topic of a school or scholarship fund for journalism on the island. I think it's important that we as media establish a scholarship fund with the backing, of course, of government or any other entity that feels called to support that initiative. I would call upon my colleagues in the industry to join me also in establishing a scholarship fund for journalism on the island. And the purpose of that scholarship fund would be indeed to fund anyone interested in studying journalism, wants to become a journalist, a reporter, editor, whatever profession in news broadcasting, be it in print or radio or TV, that the scholarship fund would be used to fund that endeavor of students looking to become reporters or journalists. There are a number of schools for journalism in the United States, also in Holland, and I think given the fact that our society is still a Dutch-based society, and a lot of the work in government and in the judicial branch also take place in Dutch. It is important that we also have Dutch students study in Holland that can participate in a journalism program on the island and study abroad in Holland, and can also do Dutch news reporting in a courthouse, like Gilbert said. He was the only one at the time that followed the news in the courthouse because it was all in Dutch, and he, of course, speaks and writes Dutch fluently. So we would need indeed reporters and journalists that can also master the Dutch language. The scholarship fund can be used indeed then to send them to Holland to study journalism in Holland, and those who are English-based, we can send them either to the British Islands, University of the West Indies, for instance, or to the United States, Canada, wherever they want to study journalism in English. We would utilize the scholarship fund for that purpose. You know, education is important on our island. In terms of capacity building, as we discussed last week in our segment on the political reality of St. Martin, we need education. And in this field, in the media, we definitely also need education. We need professional journalists and reporters active. And for that purpose, we should support their efforts with a scholarship fund. I see we have a question here from one of our viewers. She's asking what the media is doing to encourage youngsters to study journalism. As I said, at the present, there's nothing actively being done to encourage youngsters to study journalism. Again, it's all part of our education process to inform our students on the island, studying on the island before they graduate, to have the option of indeed studying journalism. And that's why I want to have a journalism fund established so that we can indeed encourage these students that want to choose to go into the profession of journalism to have a fund, a scholarship fund, a source of funding that they can tap into to financially support their efforts in that arena. So yes, we should do more on our island to encourage youngsters to study journalism. I know at the Herald, they had a wonderful program with the youngsters. I forgot what it's called again. They actively helped youngsters with the reporting. They would create their own, Teen Times, yes, Teen Times. They would all create their own newspaper called Teen Times, and they would publish it. They would write it and publish it themselves with the support of the Herald. That was a great endeavor. That was a great project. I think it's still ongoing. But what I've seen from that end, I've seen a lot of youngsters come out and who are active today in our community, in business, in government, politics, and other areas, arenas, who started at the Teen Times writing for that teen newspaper, and who are now, actively involved in our society as young professionals. So indeed, that is something that we can encourage and continue to encourage our youngsters to participate in that profession, starting small with the Herald. But of course, they are welcome to contact me as well and work with me in this profession, because I need writers, I need reporters, ultimately I need journalists to continue that profession where Hubert Hart has left off, where I cannot fulfill because I only have two hands, I can only write with one. So I definitely need help. I've reached out many times asking for assistance through many of our colleagues in the professional, even professional writers, educators, professors, that if they have students in their classes that has affinity with writing or with reporting, please send them my way, send them to me. I'll gladly put a program together for them to start into this profession. And indeed, if you can get and raise the funding, I will indeed personally support them with their effort and endeavor to become journalists in this profession, and to study abroad as well, and to come back home, of course, come back home, please, and continue the profession here on St. Martin. So yes, that is indeed a very important aspect of our role as media as well, to encourage the next generation to continue to work where many of us, like Andrew Bishop, indeed, God rest his soul, he's gone on. So, the void that he has left now, has to be filled as well. And that will be the case for many of us. We're not here forever. So, the next generation will have to continue where we left off. And it is my dream to have a printed newspaper, a version of stmartinnews.com, the online version, have it physically offline as well, as a tangible product in our hands, in our readers' hands. That is my ultimate goal, ladies and gentlemen. And that being said, I hope that others will join me in that endeavor to get that established, to have writers, reporters, journalists, editors active on our island, because our island needs that. We need that counterbalance, that critical eye to follow things on the island, not only in government, but also in other aspects of our community and society. We need reporters, because there are many issues that need covering. There are many people that need help in exposing certain topics and issues that they're going through, certain problems that they have, they need help. And reporters also are seen as to have a social role to fulfill in helping people with their problems as well, and to bring in attention and bringing light to those topics as well, via the media, be it in print, online, via social media, or via radio or television. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this evening. I hope you had a wonderful time following the discussion, me, myself, and I. But indeed, next time we hope to have another topic with a special guest on the program. And I hope that you do tune in with us next week. Next Thursday again at 8 p.m. We'll be back live here on News Cafe. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to close off this evening. Thank you, and join us next week again. Bye-bye.